One of my Helen May Crochet special donor members asked that I show how to make this cardinal bird with Tunisian crochet. She wanted to make a Hotpad as a gift for someone. And she wanted to learn how to Tunisian crochet and at the same time make one of these. So I'm going to show how to make this using Tunisian crochet. If you want to learn more about Helen May Crochet special donor members, you can go to my blog www.helenmaycrochet.com, and at the top of my home page you'll see the link for Helen May Crochet special donor members, and they have special benefits that you'll be able to read more about. And one of those benefits is to make a crochet request. So this is the crochet request that I'm going to complete, and I just wanted to point out a few things. Now with this pot holder or Hotpad, it's made with 100% cotton yarn, and when you're doing the color changes, sometimes you'll see a little bit of a curve formed on the sides. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that before you start, that may happen, and sometimes just kind of stretching and blocking your work will help with that. I'm going to be showing you how to make this using 100% cotton, but you could use 100% acrylic yarn as well, a medium 4 yarn. Now on the back, my method's a little bit different. You'd be able to go to Tunisian crochet groups if you want to learn different methods for Tunisian crochet. I'm just showing you my method that I use, so I don't like to bury loose yarn ends. So on the back of mine, I made a Tunisian crochet backing, which is a very simple backing. So the only color changes are when I wanted to switch to a scrubby. So this is 100% cotton as well. It's a scrubby yarn. It's not as abrasive as some of the other scrubby yarns. That's why I like to use it. But you can see how I alternated between the 100% cotton red and the scrubby yarn. So this could also be used as a dishcloth or a tawashi. So that's one method that you can do, and I'll show how to attach this style of backing, and then I'll also show how to crochet the nice shell border around it. Now the other thing that you can make with this, which is what I'm going to be making on video tutorial, you'll be able to make this Hotpad or tawashi, or you can make it into a pillow. So the next one that I'm going to make into a pillow. At the craft store, you may be able to find some fabric with cardinals on it, like I did with red cardinals. And you can also put a fabric backing onto the back of your Tunisian crochet cardinal. So I'll be showing that as well. I chose a 1/2 yard fabric piece. So there's plenty of birds on it for different projects. Now the cardinals, there aren't as many cardinals, so you'll have to keep that in mind if you're getting your fabric for it. And like I said, I only got 1/2 yard, which isn't very expensive, and I was able to get some really good cardinal designs on my fabric. On my blog, www.helenmaycrochet.com, you'll find other Tunisian crochet projects that I've completed, like the Wizard of Oz, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Minecraft. All of the graphs that I used are available for free PDF download, and you'll notice that I always use the same size, which is about a 5.75 millimeter crochet hook. So I don't have a lot of these crochet hooks. I'm happy with this size, and this is the size that I use whenever I make a Tunisian crochet project. I did discover this Tunisian crochet hook at Hobby Lobby, so I went ahead and grabbed one. It's a flexible Afghan hook, and it's close to the size of mine. It's a 6 millimeter, so there's really the size difference may create a little bit of a size difference in the finished work, but not much. So it's pretty similar. And what I like about this one, which I may try, most of mine are about a 40 block by a 40 block graph. So I have these blank graphs available on my website. Just go to www.helenmaycrochet.com. At the top of my home page, you'll see a link for graphs, free graphs, and you can go in there and get a free blank one. And I also make all of my finished graphs available. So on the blog post, the respective blog post for the project, you'll find the graphs that I use for free download. So this one is the graph that I'm going to use for the red cardinal. And I made a little bit of adjustment to the beak. On my original, this is the prototype, you can see how the beak, I got rid of the little dot there, the orange dot, to make the beak a little bit more pointed. So that's the only change that I'm making really. I like the rest of the design, how it turned out. But you can make changes. If you want to make slight changes, you can do that. You could just print up your free cardinal graph and your free blank graph and just make whatever changes that you want for your own. But this is the graph that I'm going to be following, and again, you'll be able to get the free download of this graph to follow along. I'm going to be showing you how to make this complete bird. So this will be for beginners. They wanted, the request was to make a full one of these so a beginner could make a full block. So I'm going to be showing that. The colors that I chose 100% cotton yarn for this project. And the cotton yarn that I used is I Love This Yarn, 100% cotton, and also the Sugar Lily, 100% cotton yarn. So I found there's a difference between the two yarns. Let me just show you. So the Sugar Lily cotton yarn is a little bit of a rougher texture, and the I Love This cotton yarn is really soft. So that's the difference, but both will work. So if you don't find a color, I would recommend the I Love This cotton yarn first, and if you can't really find the color, then you can use the Sugar Lily, and it still turns out good. So if you find a different color that you like in the different brand of yarn, as long as it's 100% cotton, you can go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, you don't have to use 100% cotton, but I've had a lot of viewers that say that for their kitchen hot pads, pot holders, they prefer the 100% cotton because the 100% acrylic contains petroleum products and it can melt and create a sheen. So if you don't want that, then just use the 100% cotton. And I'm going to also use 100% cotton even though I'm making a pillow for mine. So now back to this hook, you can fit more stitches on this crochet hook. So you'll understand more once we start crocheting, because I'm going to be showing you how to Tunisian crochet with the rigid hook, so the longer rigid hook. And the other thing I wanted to point out is you'll notice that I have a little fluorescent green gripper on mine. I like to use this, it's a pencil grip. They're really inexpensive, and I just purchased a pack of them from Walmart, and I still have a whole bunch of them. But you'll notice, especially with mine, I put so much pressure on it as I'm turning that it'll actually will break. So I just replace it with a new one. And usually they don't break until I finish a whole afghan. So I just finished my Wizard of Oz afghan with one of these. And so I just replaced it. And they're real simple. You just put them right onto your hook. And then it helps so you don't put a lot of pressure with your thumb and your finger as you're turning the hook to make your stitches. So with the other Tunisian wire one, you'll notice that you could fit more stitches on it. So that's the purpose of this one. So if I ever wanted to make a longer block, then I would use this style of Tunisian crochet hook. And you'll also need a little tapestry needle or darning needle, and I usually like the ones with the pointed end, and also a pair of scissors. Now I'm just going to go over the yarn colors that I chose for mine. So I had a silver color, and I actually chose, you can use either silver on here on your graph, you'll notice the little silver areas, or a gray, or I switched mine out for a dark brown. So that's an option that you can use for your cardinal bird. So you can see that the dark brown here, so you could change that to a silver or a gray if you wanted to. But for mine, I used a dark brown. You can have fun with the eyes. Here you notice I made a blue eye, so it's kind of a light blue eye. You can also have fun with a turquoise, but this time I'm going to be using my dark brown. So I'm going to make a dark brown eye this time. And the reason why sometimes you want to be careful is because you don't want it to blend in too much with the darker black. So you still want to see the eye, but I'm going to test it with the dark brown. That should still show up okay for the eyeball. And another alternative is you could actually use the branch color brown if you want it to pop more or show up more. The color that I used for the branch, if you like it, is antique gold. So this is, I love this cotton antique gold color that I used for the branch. So sometimes it's hard to appreciate on video the sparkle of the white, but this actually has a sparkle, really beautiful sparkle. And I love this cotton spark, and it's the white sparkle. Here's some information about this 100%. It's actually 97% cotton with 3% metallic polyester. I only needed 1 skein of this for the Cardinal, and I actually had some left over for my last skein. I just got another one to start my new one. All of the colors that you use for this Hotpad will need 1 skein, even the red where I made the border with the shell. This is how much I have left over of the red after making the one. So I still have plenty. So this is a beautiful emerald green, and this is also, I love this cotton yarn, and I used emerald green for the leaf, the holly leaf. And I used the same color red. You may want to change the color red for the berries, but I'm just going to use the same color. For the beak, I just used an orange. So I used this really beautiful orange with I love this cotton yarn. And then just get your black color. I just used a Sugar Lily black colored yarn. And then if you like the scrubby on the back, I just used a scrubby yarn. So I like this scrubby yarn because, and this one was from Hobby Lobby, because it's not as abrasive, it's still really soft, and it's 100% cotton too. So now we're ready to get started. Go ahead and get your free graph to follow along from www.helenmaycrochet.com. So the first thing you want to do is look at your graph, and we're going to start at the bottom. So we're going to start with our starting chain. So the starting chain always starts from left to right. So for this one, you're going to have all of the same color. Now if there were a color down lower, then you would have to count your chains. So say the red went down to the first row, you would chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the white color, and then change to how many red you need, and then back to the white color all the way across for the number that you need. So it's 1 to 1. So we have 40 blocks at the bottom. So we're going to start with a starting chain of 40. So usually when you're reading a graph, you'll want to start from this way and go that and chain this way. But with Tunisian crochet, you don't do that. You'll start your starting chain from the left to the right. And this one's easy because our starting chain is all going to be white. So you're going to start with a chain of 40 with the white colored yarn. So go ahead and get your white colored yarn, and you're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop. And then take your crochet hook, and again I'm using my 5.75 millimeter crochet hook. And you're going to put it right through the loop, and then just hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. And then you're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down and cinch the loop around the crochet hook. And then you're just going to make a chain the same way that you would with a regular crochet hook. So you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your first chain. Now this first chain represents one block on your graph. And then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your second chain. I'm just going to show you 4 of them on video tutorial, but you're going to finish a chain of 40. Then I'm going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for 3 and 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 40, and then come back. So now you should have a chain of 40, and I'm just going to measure it out for you. So mine measures about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, approximately 13 inches on my starting chain. So now we're going to start the first row. So on the graph, we made a starting chain, and the first row is this bottom row. So the starting chain doesn't count for your first row. And now we're going to start the first row on the graph, and when you're starting the first row, you're going to go back from right to left. So now you should have ended with a loop on your Tunisian crochet hook, and you're going to take your hook and you're going to go into that second chain from the hook. So that first loop, that's your last chain right there. So that counts as your first loop. Go into that second chain from the hook to bring up a loop. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to go into the next stitch and bring up a loop. Now you have 3. And you're going to go into each stitch back across, bringing up a loop. And each of these loops count as a block on your graph. So far we have 4. And we should end up with 40 when we're finished. So go ahead, finish bringing up all of your loops until you reach the end, and then you're just going to count all of your loops to make sure that you have 40 loops on your crochet hook. So this is what my work looks like so far after I finished my last loop. So you can twist it back so you can see all of your loops. So for beginners, I would recommend double checking your work. So at this point, if you don't have 40 loops on your crochet hook, then you did something wrong, and you have to go back and start again until you have the same as me, the 40 loops on your Tunisian crochet hook. So now, when you're up to this point, we only finished half of the first row. So on the graph, you went from this side back across, and each of the loops represents one of the blocks on your graph, so 40. And now we're going to complete the first row by going back to the start, and then we'll be ready for our second row. So now you're just going to take your Tunisian crochet hook, and you always start the same way. So what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through only one loop. So that counts as your first on the end. So that's 1. Then the rest of them, you go through 2 loops. So the initial turn back is always going through 1 loop. So now you yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 loops. And that counts as 2. So you can see these little vertical lines forming. So the first one is on the end where you only went through 1 loop. And then you have your second vertical loop where you went through 2. Then you yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 loops for your third. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 for your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and you could see how I have my thumb on my gripper. So go ahead, finish yarning over and going through 2 loops at a time until you've completed the first row. And this is how your work should look. And then come back. I'm just actually going to show you how I'm holding my hands as I Tunisian crochet back. How I'm holding my work. I had some viewers that commented about how I bend my finger. So I don't know how they keep their fingers straight. That just, I can't, it slows me down. But either way is fine. You'll find your own technique. What only matters is how you finish your work. So now I'm coming up towards the end. I'm just going to work these last few. I'm almost down to the and finishing the first row on the graph. So now you should end with a loop on your Tunisian crochet hook. And you finished the first row on the graph. And this is how your work should look. So I'm just going to point out a few things. So on your stitches, this is what it looks like on the back, and then this is what it looks like on the front. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be working into, I'm going to use my tapestry needle to kind of show you. You'll see these vertical lines on your work. So those are the stitches that we're going to be putting our crochet hook through. So only that vertical stitch. That's the only stitch that your crochet hook should be going into. So now we're ready to go up, move up to the second row on the graph. So we completed one row. So now we're moving up to the second row, and with the second row you can see that there's going to be a color change on the second row, but it's not until, and I have them numbered on the bottom, so this is 31, so those are 31 white blocks until you get to your color change. So on your Tunisian crochet hook you have one loop that counts as one on the end, and then you're going to go into the vertical stitch with your crochet hook. So you only want that one vertical stitch, just like I showed you with the tapestry needle. And then you're going to bring up a loop, so just yarn over and bring up a loop. So now you have two loops, and you can see how the loops are going to line up with the vertical stitches below. So they should always line up. If they don't line up, then you've done something wrong. Now you're going to go into the next vertical stitch and bring up a loop, and we're going to keep doing this until we have 31 loops on the crochet hook. Remember, these loops represent one block on your graph. So go ahead and bring up 31 loops, and then when you get to the 32nd loop, I'll show you how to color change. So far I have 5. I'll make one more and then let you finish. You can see how I use my thumb to kind of help push that vertical stitch onto the crochet hook. So go ahead, finish bringing up 31 of the loops on your Tunisian crochet hook, and then come back. So now I have 31 of the white loops on my crochet hook. So I'm going to look at my graph again. So you were on the second row and you went all the way across, 31 white loops, and now you have 4 of the red loops that you need. So we're going to grab our red yarn now. So I have my red yarn, and I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch. I dropped the white yarn. I'm going into the vertical stitch, and then I'm going to bring up a loop with the red yarn. So just bring up a loop with the red yarn, and then you're just going to set your work down. You're going to grab the white colored yarn, and then you're just going to tie a knot. And then just drop that loose yarn in of the red, drop the white colored yarn, and then you're going to pick up the red colored yarn, and then I made my first red loop. Remember, on the graph we needed 4 of the red loops, so you're going to go into the next vertical stitch from the first row, bring up a loop. So now you have 2 of the red loops, go into the next, and you want to make sure that you don't miss a vertical stitch from the previous row, because like I told you, the loops should line up with each of the vertical stitches from the previous row, 1 to 1. And if you miss one or skip one, your count is going to be off, and also your graph, the vertical lines are not going to be lining up. So then you know you did something wrong, and it's best to catch your error earlier rather than later. So you want to make sure that you're following along and everything's lining up. Then you're going to go into the next vertical stitch, bring up your 4th. So now you finished your 4 red loops, and I'm just going to show you on the graph. So now you finished the 4 red loops, and now you're going to make the rest the white. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 remaining white loops. So now you can drop the red, and sometimes it'll be too hard to just pick up the white yarn and start using Tunisian crochet with the white yarn, because you don't want to stretch it too far. But this is short enough to where you can just stretch it across, and we'll be going, as we finish the bird, I'll be showing you what to do if it's too long and you can't stretch it across. But wherever I can, I try to stretch it across, but if I think it's too long, then I'm just going to cut it. But I'll show you that later when we get to that point. But right now it's only 4 loops that we're crossing with the white. So I'm just going to drop the red, I'm going to pick up the white colored yarn, and then I'm going to bring my Tunisian crochet hook through the next vertical stitch, and then just pick up the white colored yarn and bring up a loop. So there's 1, and then I'm just going to Tunisian crochet with the white colored yarn, 2, and remember we needed 5. There's 3, 4, and then you have the end. Some people like to put a stitch marker in the end. to kind of show them where the end stitch is, but usually I haven't had to do that, but that's just a little trick. If you have trouble seeing that last stitch or you want to make sure you don't miss it, you can always stick a little stitch marker in there, and I'm just going to show you what I mean by stitch marker for beginners. So here is one stitch marker that I got from the San Diego Yarn Crawl. They were giving these out for free. You can see it has a little safety pin, and you just take that safety pin and you just place it through the stitch to kind of mark it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my last stitch, and for beginners I would recommend counting your loops again and just making sure that you have 40 loops. So I'm just going to show you how to use the stitch marker. So now you should have 40 loops. So we finished half of row 2. So now we're going to complete row 2 by going back across to the beginning, and then we'll be ready for row 3. So remember that for this first start going back, you're only going to yarn over and go through one loop. And this is where you can go ahead and place your stitch marker. So you just take your stitch marker and then just put it right through that end loop that you just created. Vertical stitch. And then that will mark that stitch on the end for you when you get back. But like I said, I don't usually need that. I can usually see it. And I just want to show you some other stitch marker options. So you could just use a little safety pin if you wanted to, but I have fun collecting little stitch markers. This little case is from Pastiche Accessories, so you can find her on Etsy. She does beautiful polymer clay work. So as you know, I love the dogs. So on my website, at the top of my blog homepage, you can find Helen May Crochet dogs, and you can see all of the crochet amigurumi dogs that I've made so far. But she makes these beautiful little stitch markers with the polymer clay art. So I like to use these sometimes too for my crochet work. And you can also use these as charms. So if you finish like one of your crochet amigurumi dogs and you made a little collar, you can clasp this to the collar as a little present or design. So that's an option, and she makes all kinds of different ones, and you can even make it a request too, so they're really cute. I like to collect those, and sometimes I'll do these for my giveaways too, for my free random giveaways or free giveaways or contest packages. And then if you can't use the little clasps, I had someone tell me that too, that they had difficulties with the smaller clasps. These big safety pins are adorable too. So you can get these off Amazon. They have these for Amazon Prime. And they're little safety pins with little animal heads on them. So these are really large. You could use those as well. So now we're going to continue moving back. And like I said, sometimes you can just kind of curl that back down if you need to. And now for the rest of them, you're going to go through 2. So you just yarn over and then you go through 2. So I'm going to work the color change with you. So you yarn over and then go through 2. We still have the white color yarn, and what you're paying attention to is the first 2 loops. So I'm going to yarn over and go through 2. So I still have 2 of the white loops. So I'm going to yarn over and then go through 2. But now you'll notice that I have 1 white and 1 red. So that's your cue that you need to color change. So you're going to drop the white colored yarn. You're going to pick up the red colored yarn. Make sure you don't pick up the loose yarn end. You want to pick up your yarn that you're going to be crocheting with. And then you're going to yarn over and then bring the red colored yarn through 2. And then if you'll notice, I still have 2 loops with the red. So I'm going to yarn over and then go through 2. I still have the 2 loops with the red. Yarn over and go through 2. And then yarn over and go through 2. And then now you'll notice that I have 1 red and 1 white. So that's your cue. Drop the red and then pick up the white colored yarn. So now you're going to look back and just make sure that you don't have too large of a gap. So you give it a gentle tug. Don't pull it too tight. You don't want to distort your stitches. You just kind of gently pull it, just slightly. And then you're going to bring it, yarn over, and then you can see how I have my thumb to kind of control the tension on the yarn. So I'm holding it so it doesn't pull as I turn my hook and bring it through 2 loops. Then you can let go, bring your thumb over, and then you're going to yarn over and go through 2. And then the rest of them are white. So you're just going to yarn over and go through 2 all the way back across. So go ahead, finish up this row, and then I'll help you move up to row 3. So now you just finished row 2. And this is what your work looks like, and it's lining up exactly with the graph. So now you want to double check your graph, and you want to make sure we're now up to row 3. So we're on row 3. You want to make sure where the color change is going to occur, and it's going to occur 1 block before the previous row. And we're going to have 3 red and then a black colored yarn, and then a red colored yarn before we go back to the white. So we're going to need 30 loops of the white before the color change. So far I have 1 loop on my crochet hook. So I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch and bring up a loop. And you can see how each of the vertical stitches is lining up like it's supposed to. And you're going to keep bringing up a loop until you have 30. And then you're going to come back and I'll help you with the color changes. So we are on row 3, and I just finished 30 loops of the white colored yarn. And then I kind of squinch it together, and then I'm ready for the color change. So I'm going to go into the block, the vertical stitch right before the previous row's red. And then I'm going to drop the white colored yarn and then pick up the red colored yarn. Now I'm going to give it a gentle tug to kind of bring the stitches together, but not too tight. You don't want it too tight, so just give it a little gentle tug. And then you're going to bring up a loop with the red colored yarn for 1. Now this is the tricky part, because at the color change, sometimes the vertical stitch is so close that you may miss it. So you don't want to miss the vertical stitch from the previous row. So you want to go into that stitch. And sometimes with the color change, it brings that vertical stitch so close that you may miss it. So you don't want to miss it. And then you bring up your next one. So remember, we need 3 red before we change to black. So we're going to go into the next vertical stitch. So I have 3 of the red. Now I'm going to bring up the black colored yarn. So I'm going to go into the next vertical loop, and then I'm going to get my black colored yarn. And then I'm going to bring up a loop with the black colored yarn. And then I'm going to drop my work and then take and tie a knot with the red colored yarn. And then we only needed 1 of the black colored yarn. So I'm going to drop the black colored yarn. I'm going to pick up the red colored yarn. I'm going to go into the next vertical loop, vertical stitch, bring up a loop with the red colored yarn, and then you're ready to resume with the white colored yarn. So you're going to drop the red, and then the white colored yarn is still close enough where I'm going to go ahead and bring it across. I'm going to go into the next vertical loop and then vertical stitch, and then bring up a loop with the white colored yarn, and then the rest of the stitches are the white colored yarn. So I'm going to go through and then just bring up a loop with the white colored yarn. So there's 3, 4, and then you see the stitch on the end. Sorry, getting out of view there. Then you see the stitch on the end with the stitch marker. That would be your 5th. So you can go ahead and remove the stitch marker now. If you use stitch marker, I'm not going to be using stitch markers with mine. So if, like I said, if it will help you to see your stitches, then you can go ahead and use a stitch marker. So now I'm going to go into that vertical stitch on the end and then bring up a loop. So now, for beginners, I would recommend counting your stitches or your loops. You should have a total of 40 loops on your hook, Tunisian crochet hook, and I'm just going to show you with the graph how you're lining up. So remember, we had 3. We're on row 3, and we're halfway finished, and we had 3 red, 1 black, and 1 red, and we're at this point, and we're going to go back across. So here you could see I have the 3 red, the 1 black, and the 1 red. And then you want to make sure that you have a total of 40. So beginners, it's very important that you count. As you get better at it, you'll be able to maybe not count as much, but I've had someone say that, and I kind of agree with them, you should always count with Tunisian crochet, because if you mess up, it's just a pain when you have to frog, and frog means that you have to undo your crochet work to where the mistake is. So you don't want that to happen. And what I'm going to show you is I don't count the loops on the hook. I always count on my way back. And to me, I find that easier, and I'm going to show you how I do that now. So to count on the way back, what I do, and the other trick too that some people like to use is they like to use bobbins. So you may want to wind some of your yarn onto a bobbin, but what I do is I just cut, I'll leave like an excess amount to work with, and then I'll just cut the yarn so it doesn't get tangled. So that's one method that I use, and I just use the skein of yarn. So for me, that's easier. I don't do a lot of Tunisian crochet to warrant wrapping them all up onto bobbins, but you could do that. Some people like to use cardboard. You know, it depends on what you want to do, but they do have some devices that you can purchase for that. But for me, I just cut it and then tie knots. But some people don't like tying knots, so you'll just decide what technique that you want to use. There's no right or wrong as long as your finished product is the way that you want it. So this is just the method that I fell in love with because it's just quick and easy, and I just love using this method. So there are groups on Facebook, Tunisian crochet groups, that can show you a lot more different Tunisian stitches and other helpful hints and tricks and techniques if you want to do that. So now I'm going to go ahead and count on the way back and color change so you can see how I do that. So remember that for the start, you only go through 1 loop. So you yarn over and then go through 1 loop. So that counts as 1. Yarn over and go through 2 loops. and that counts as 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you have one white and one red. So you're going to drop the white, pick up the red, 6. So I'm on 6. Drop the red because I have one red, one black. So pick up the black for 7. So that's 7. And then I have one black, one red. So drop the black, pick up the red for 8. And now you always keep them in mind if you need to gently tug on the yarn, not too much, for 8. Now I have 2 red, so I stay with this color. 9, 10, 1 red, 1 white, drop the red. And you can see how I have a big loop there with the whites. I'm going to gently tug it just a little bit, not too much. $11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. So that's always a good sign when you count and you get 40, because you should end with 40 because we have a 40 block graph. So that's how I count. I prefer to count on the way back. To me it's just easier and quicker, and that's how you complete each of the row. So now we're ready for the 4th row on the graph. So on the 4th row, you're almost going to get to the branch. The branch doesn't start till the 5th row, so you're still going to have the white color all the way to the tail, and you can see that now you have 2 red blocks in the front. So we're not going to probably be able to stretch the white across on this row, so I'll be able to show you what to do when you're not able to stretch the white across. So you're going to be making 28 of the white loops before the color change. So I'll just get you started, and then when you come back I'll help you with the color change. So I'm going into the second one for 2, 3, 4. So go ahead, finish getting 28 of the white loops and then come back. So now I have 28 loops on my Tunisian crochet hook, and now you're going to look at the graph and make sure how many red that you need on the tail. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4 red before you use the black. So you're going to pick up your red colored yarn, and you can see how there's a large loop there between the 2 stitches, so you just give it a gentle tug to bring the stitches together. But again, like I said, you don't want to pull it too hard because then you'll distort the graph or the picture. So you want it the same even, try to keep the stitches apart the same distance as you're making your finished product. So then you just go and bring up a loop with the red. So there's one. You go into the next one, vertical stitch for your second. Go into the next vertical stitch for your third. And then the next vertical stitch for your fourth. And then you're just going to drop the red. We're done with the red color for now. And then you're going to go into the next vertical stitch for the black color. So I'm going to pick up my black colored yarn. And again, I'm just going to give it a gentle tug. And then bring up the black color. And then on the graph, I need 2 red. So I'm going to go into the black vertical stitch, drop the black yarn, pick up my red, bring up a red, and then the next vertical stitch for my last red colored yarn. Just looking at the graph. And then you're going to go into, now this is the tricky part, because you can see that the vertical stitch is really close to the red, so you don't want to miss it. And now the white colored yarn, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it. You could stretch it across still, but I'm just going to show you what I do. So now I need the white colored yarn. So what I'm going to do is just leave a long length. So I'm just pulling off the skein a bunch of the white colored yarn, and then I'm going to cut it. And then this is the new yarn end attached to the skein. So I'm just going to use that. So this yarn that I'm going to pull up is from the skein of yarn. So now I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch. And again, don't miss the vertical stitch. If it's too close, make sure that you see it. And again, all of the vertical stitches are going to be in line. Then you're just going to bring up a loop with the white colored yarn, and then just set your work down and then tie a knot. So I like the knot method because it's just not going to come undone, and you're not going to see the knots. They're on the back of the work, on the wrong side of the work. Then the rest of them are going to be with the white colored yarn, the rest of the vertical stitches. And then you have the one on the end. So I can see the one on the end easily. So that's why I don't use a stitch marker on the end, but I've seen other people do that. So if that helps you when you're first starting, then yeah, go ahead and use the stitch marker on the end to catch that last stitch. And then I'm going to count with you on the way back. So this is where I count. I start counting to make sure that I have the 40 blocks completed. So I'm going to yarn over, go through 1, yarn over and go through 2 for 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. So you're always happy when you end up with the 40. And again, the other nice thing about Tunisian crochet for double checking, all of your vertical stitches are lined up. And you're going to get a natural curl at the bottom with Tunisian crochet, so don't worry, that's normal with Tunisian crochet, is you'll get that curl at the bottom. And then here you could see the color changes. You have your beautiful tail that's starting to form. So there was another trick that one of the viewers had told us to help us with the curl. So I don't usually do this, but I'm going to show you. So I'm going to see with this to see if it helps at all. So you can take these clips. So I found these at Yarnology, but you can also use a clothespin, but I like these. These are small. So again, I got these at Hobby Lobby. They're butterfly clips. So you can take these little butterfly clips and you could put them on the bottom to kind of hold the curl so it doesn't curl up on you. You can kind of evenly space them across. So if the curl really bothers you, you can just place these clips on the bottom to help hold it down as you crochet. So now you're ready to move up to row 5. So row 5 is going to have 4 of the white loops before you change to the brown, 3 of the brown. So we're going to start that. So I have the 1 loop already on the hook. I'm going to go into the next one for 2, 3, 4, and then you're ready to bring in your next color, the brown, and I'm using the antique gold colored yarn. Oops, grab the white. So here's my antique gold, and I'm just going to bring up a loop and then tie a knot. And I need 3 of the antique gold color. So there's 1. 2 and 3. So I always love Tunisian crochet because I feel like I'm painting with yarn. So now you finished the 3 and then you just need count how many white blocks that you need. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I need 20 of the white colored loops. So I'm going to drop the antique gold color, pick up the white colored yarn, and then bring up 20 loops with the white colored yarn. So I'm on 14, and you can see how my yarn is getting short. So now I have 15, 16, 17, and it's really short. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more of the white colored yarn. So I'm going to go into the next block, drop the loose yarn end with the white, and then I'm going back to my skein, and then I'm just going to bring a lot of yarn to leave where I left off on the previous white colored yarn. So I have enough to work with on that side. And so you could see why some people like to use bobbins to wrap the yarn around so they don't have to do this as much. But with me, I'm tying knots anyway, and for me, I'm not burying my loose yarn in, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to take my new white colored yarn, I'm going to bring up a loop, and then I'm going to tie a knot where I left off. So that was 18. 19 and 20. So you can see that's what you do if you run out. And these clips work great. So if you want to use that trick, thank you, Christine. She's the one who recommended this, which it works really well. You can place these little butterfly clips at the bottom, and then that helps keep the curl down.